In the bayou, there exists a monster, standing at 8 feet tall, wearing the head of a pig seemingly impaled by a dozen sticks, with its weapon of choice being a flaming meat hook. Catching a sight of this would leave you traumatized undoubtedly, yet this beast is a sight beheld in the bayou, seen by too many. Yet stories of it are rare, no doubt as to why. This ruthless killing machine likely leaves nothing in its path, and anyone to see it and live would likely never want to think of it again. This is the Butcher, and today we're going to be diving into the story and lore of him. And I think you're going to want to hear this one, because it might be the most significant story I've had on this channel yet. We'll be starting off this tale with some newspaper clippings. Clippings from the New Orleans True Crescent, July 19th, 1893. A rare exhibition. Perhaps you've heard of the art of taxidermy, though you may not count it among the finer arts known to man. It can still be practiced with delicacy and skill. None have practiced the art with such whimsy as Walter Potter, an Englishman well known among his peers in his home country. Photographs of Potter's work will be on display for viewing at the home of a local practitioner, Ariel D'aunoy, this Saturday, admittance 5 cents. September 22nd, 1893. Come see Barnum's American Museum in town 1 week only, featuring strange and marvelous one-of-a-kind creatures guaranteed to shock and awe, preserved by scientists to inspire and educate. Tickets available at the home of Mr. Ariel D'aunoy. June 1st, 1894. You'll never have to say goodbye to Rover. If you're mourning the passing of your favorite pet, consider the services of Mr. Ariel D'aunoy. Birds, dogs, rabbits, squirrels, and cats can be preserved to stay with you always. Remember the good times you shared and amuse your guests. Call me at the home of Mr. D'aunoy between hours of 11 and 3 for consultation. March 31st, 1895. Ready for his profession. The body of taxidermist Mr. Ariel D'aunoy was discovered by a group of fishermen on a road to Stillwater Bayou this past Sunday. It is not known how he came to be in the location, or the poor condition in which he was found, being only recognizable by a poorly cast glass eye. Should any readers have information about Mr. D'aunoy's activity in the past few days, please call on the constable between the hours of 8 and 10 in the morning. Another reminder to move with caution after dark. October 23rd, 1895. Well preserved. The Great Fire in Algery sent many prized possessions up in smoke. While our reporting is usually appropriately somber, one curious anecdote proved so remarkable as to be printed. A firefighter, sifting through the wreckage of one home, found preserved a curious collection, a menagerie of taxidermied pets. The eccentric collector would be pleased to know that whatever fire retardant measures taken by the taxidermist proved successful beyond all measure. Here's a collection of newspaper clippings involving taxidermy and fire. While I'm not exactly sure what taxidermy has to do with the butcher yet, it does seem possible that Ariel met his end by the butcher. Although his wounds are not described, we can infer that he was pretty messed up. But the butcher seems to stay inside buildings and he was on the road. There was also the article of a one-of-a-kind creature he had already, but I can't imagine he had the butcher captured unless he believed it to be dead. There's so many things we don't know yet. Also, for what it's worth, the final paragraph mentions some taxidermy animals that survived a fire. Let's move on though and see if we can make more sense of everything. Interview with Lawrence Frank, April 2nd, 1895. Sir, I beg your pardon, but I am certain that the man brought down the plague upon this town. God rest his soul, the flu has taken so many already. My own sons have got the cough, but God has delivered his punishment. Now I know that God Lord decreed that animals would not carry no soul within their bodies. It was not wrong on that account, but no healthy-minded man would choose such a profession, not on my life. Mr. D'aunoy first took the quarters adjacent to ours 1 year ago. I brought him our family's well wishes as a good neighbor must, and he offered a tour of his shop, for he would both live and work on premise. I was shocked when he showed me the racks of skins. There were rows and rows of fine, sharp knives and other strange tools I did not recognize. I didn't know what they were for, but from the look of them, they were horrible. Sharp, horrible things. I hate to even think of them. I took a disliking to him immediately. I had always thought preserved animals were stuffed somehow, like a toy bear. I didn't know what had to be done. Mr. D'aunoy, with no little excitement, explained to me that he had made clay models of the animals, and then stretched the skins upon them like a coat. It is no wonder God has cursed us with a plague. Only a man of the devil would do such things, mark my word. My husband and I made it clear that he was not welcome. And yes, we encouraged our neighbors to do the same. It was our Christian duty. Of course, our Tommy took a liking to the man. Fool he is. I forbid him from ever crossing his threshold, but I'm sure he has. And no manner of hidings will cure the boy. One day he was just gone. I wish I could say I'm sorry to hear he's passed, considering the state that found him, but that was God's justice. You'll mark my words. Okay, we have an interview with a neighbor of D'aunoy, and we can see that she wasn't exactly his #1 fan. She speaks of the abomination she believes taxidermy is, along with the plagues that came to the town after his arrival. Could this be the beginning of the Louisiana event? Maybe this town was the beginning of it, but was it somehow the work of the taxidermist? Or perhaps this is all coincidence and has nothing to do with the Louisiana event. A possibility I want to mention is perhaps Florence murdered D'aunoy, or assuming the rest of the town felt similar to him, perhaps someone else did it. She did describe she seemed to hate him and seems to be a rather spiteful person. Maybe she did kill him, and that was the reason for his extensive damage, was she was just in a fit of rage. Perhaps she felt it was justice for his practice. Either way, let's move on to the next page. Journal of D'aunoy, page 1. March 4th. I have been forced to flee my home. The flu reached our neighborhood and I was handed the blame. I had thought more understood my profession, especially after so many came to see the pottery exhibit. I do not covet death. I preserve animals as to appreciate them. The act is a celebration of life. I feel deeply misunderstood, and yet I have to laugh. I share the plight of so many great artists before me, though my own lack of skill did not do the art justice at first. I was bad with the eyes, and the results were uncanny. Mrs. Glover fainted when I brought her mounted Cleveland back to her, and made me take it away to be burned. I've since become much more proficient in casting the eyes. She was not wrong. Cleveland's eyes had a glassy, demonic look to them. By the time I was required to cast my own, my skill had improved considerably. I hope to return home in a few weeks, though that may be optimistic. Perhaps the plague will have taken my wretched neighbors with them by then. The night I left, the 3 boys already had the cough. The mother won't be long after once they pass, if their predecessors are any sign as to how the illness progresses. Thinking of how they turned people I once thought of as friends against me, my thoughts grew morbid. Perhaps I should return and stuff the boys. That would show the shipwreck of a woman just how artful I am. But what am I saying? I have never even killed an animal. Would I be capable of preserving a human child? I do not think so. March 5th. This building used to be a slaughterhouse. It reminds me of home. There are several carcasses, swine, hanging in one room, though this place appears to have been abandoned for some time, and there's plenty of lumber from which I can build drying racks for the skins. I must amuse myself somehow. In the time I spend here in refuge, and I plan to put my mind to the task of preservation, I will have to overcome my aversion to hunting in order to feed myself, and I plan to preserve and mount whatever animals are destined to meet their end by my hand. I've set up quarters in a small room with a sturdy working door, and in another I have an arrangement of what instruments I was able to bring from the house. While exploring the other rooms, I found evidence that someone with a similar, if more gruesome, passion dwelled here once. I hope I do not meet him. Though as I said, this place appears to have been empty for some time. Tomorrow I will build several racks and begin drying the skins of the pig carcasses I mentioned, and perhaps preparing one of the heads for future use. At the very least, it'll be good practice. Okay, so there's a few things here to talk about. Starting off with the date, we can see that he fled his neighborhood about 1 month before his death. We can also assume that plenty of his neighbors seemed to blame him for the flu that took over the town, creating quite the list of possible suspects in his murder. We can also see that he appears to be rather angry about the whole thing, but who could really blame him? Although he did make quite the statement involving the neighbor's kids. He's taken refuge in a slaughterhouse full of pigs, which is worth noting that the butcher, in his amazing fashion sense, wears the head of a pig on his, torso? Because he lacks that crucial part of his body. I suppose maybe he's just self-conscious and it makes him feel pretty? Yeah, let's get back on track though. This seems to be like a prime location for the butcher to be. He also mentioned someone else living there for a period with a much more gruesome pastime, which I think we can all make an assumption or two about that. But now let's see where this adventure is going to go next on the next page. Journal of D'aunoy, page 2. March 9th. The events of the past 2 days may be of significant historical importance. Though my hand shakes as I write this, I intend to record facts before the faults of memory and fantasy distort them. If you're reading this, know this is no exaggeration or fabrication. This story is true. I was on a walk. I'm a poor marksman and hunter at best, and I have had to dedicate much of my time here in pursuit of small game for my supper. As I walked the grounds, I came across an enormous carcass, over 6 feet tall and at least 350 pounds. Its flesh was soft, mealy, and pale, and at its shoulder a well of leeches, now dead but clearly not in addition to, but a part of the body. I have never seen anything like it, animal or human, and the creature had no head. Not a head that had been removed, a body naturally formed without that appendage. I was badly shaken by the sight, but excited as well. Immediately an idea began to form. I could preserve this fine specimen and sell it to a showman, or dare I hope, wards, and make my fortune. It took a considerable amount of work to move the body without assistance, but I found rope and slowly hoisted it onto a small wagon which I was able to wheel back to my makeshift office. The door was large enough that I could wheel it directly into my laboratory. I skinned it immediately. Its organs were unfamiliar to me, both in shape and substance. The skin was thick and tougher than it looked, like that of an elephant perhaps. The leeches should be easy enough to preserve. They have a tough carapace and similar shape to mimicking clay. The creature will be more difficult. I have begun the amateur, and am so far happy with my work. With no brain or eyes to remove, it was a far easier task than even the smallest dog. No trouble with casting eyes this time. Imagine taking a walk through the woods, and through the grass and shrubs you find a beast laid upon the ground unlike anything you've ever seen. The 7-foot brute could have crushed you had it been alive. And upon this discovery, you decide to take it back to your butcher shop in the middle of the woods and begin working to preserve it. Could not be me. So clearly this guy has found a meathead. A big old boy, very similar to the butcher, although much easier to kill. Tag teaming with a bunch of leeches and less fireproof. He then decides to take it back to his shop to preserve it, hoping it to make him rich and famous. Of course we know that's not how this is going to end for him. We do get some more answers here, along with questions. For starters, we can see that this does appear at the beginning of the Louisiana event, although we still don't know if this taxidermist somehow contributed to causing it, but I'd be willing to bet not. Although the next question is what killed this thing? Because these are giant tanks, it's doubtful that any unexperienced hunter would have been able to take these down on their own, yet monsters don't fight each other. Perhaps the individual that used to live in the butcher shop is still hanging around, although killing a meathead would still be an impressive feat. Maybe being crazy with what I can assume is likely murderous tendencies will help, or possibly something else is happening here. I'd like to say, possibly, that this is maybe changing into the butcher, as they're very similar. However, I believe this man has skinned and dissected it, so I don't think it's going to be getting up. But let's move to the final page. Journal of D'aunoy, page 3. March 11th. Still waiting for the skin to dry, growing restless, so I walked into town for a drink. The news is bad. They're calling it a plague now as it has worsened. Many are dead. There are corpses piled in the streets. It would be prudent to wait here as long as I can to avoid the sick. March 17th. The skin is finally dry. I was able to draw it across the armature this morning. I found a large spool of wire which could uphold the form, but it is an unwieldy mass, and I have to attach the body to a number of branches to hold it upright. Without access to more modern materials, I'm forced to improvise. It looks more fearsome. I have no doubt that I'll get a pretty penny for it. March 18th. It held together through the night. It was warm yesterday, and I worried that the heat might cause deterioration. However, it is stable. I wrapped my leather apron around the body to ensure that everything holds together as it sets, and to conceal the hasty incision I made in my shock to investigate the innards. This is a dismal place to live, but not bad as a workshop and a storeroom. I found preserved a large quantity of salted meat. At first the smell was bad, but it sated my hunger while I work. I have been feeling more optimistic than ever. It was luck that brought me here, and this gentleman will surely make my career. There are horrible noises at night, but somehow I sleep. March 19th. The creature is far too unsettling without a head. Perhaps it sounds silly, it is a monster, but I have decided to attach one of the pig's heads to its body. To complete the picture, and the experiment has been a success, the thing looks even more horrific. Now to consider how I'll transport this into town when I return. It is a stormy night, and part of my sleeping quarters has caved in. Sleeping in the workshop tonight, if the thunder doesn't keep me awake all night. That was the last entry in his journal. Huh. Well, I suppose it did get up then, didn't it? Hold on now, not so fast. Let's start from the beginning with this. So this just starts off with our homeboy working on his project. He then goes on to describe setting it up with sticks, putting an apron on it, and then a pig head. All features we see with the butcher, so all signs seem to point to this creature being the butcher. But he was found on the road, so how can that be? I don't think the butcher would have moved him to the road. Would it have? Well, I have a theory here. This monster, the butcher, is clearly one of the most terrifying creatures of the Louisiana event. And my theory on this is that clearly the reason for that is D'aunoy made the butcher to be terrifying. Well, kind of. I can't say exactly how the butcher came to life. Maybe he pulled a Frosty the Snowman and the pig head was a magical pig head. Because what we're looking at here is a clay body wrapped in the skin of a meathead with a pig head on top, held together by sticks and an apron. That for some reason, when D'aunoy was wheeling it into town, came to life and dispatched him with a quickness. This creature has nothing but clay under its skin, which could explain the resistance to fire. but somehow lives. Clearly, the Louisiana event has a lot more to it than I previously thought, as in no way should this creature be alive, but it is. And just a terrifying beast as this is clearly deserving of the name Butcher. But that's going to be all for this one. If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Also, please check out my other videos like this. Well, until next time, goodbye.